Hello and welcome to this session. My name is Dr. Rajguru Mishra and I'll be your instructor for today's guided project using Python programming language. In this particular session, we are going to implement a tic-tac-toe game using Python programming language. Developing a game in Python is one of the most look after topics as in hands-on for the students. You must already know about this game called as tic-tac-toe. It is a simple game, right? That is what most people think. But if you really wrap up your brain around it, you will discover that tic-tac-toe isn't quite as simple as you think. Tic-tac-toe, like any other game, involves looking ahead and trying to figure out what the next person or the second player playing against us might do next. Anyways, it is one of the favorite games, favorite time killer, and one of the most played games since a very long time. Before we go uh, and look into how to implement this particular game into Python programming, there are certain rules which are associated to tic-tac-toe which I must, explain here. Rule number one. This game is played on a grid that is 3 squares by 3 squares. So it is a 9-box grid which is the main playground for this particular game. Rule number two. Let's say I am the first player and my opponent is the second player. It's a two-player game. So I can choose any of the X or O's to fill in, and whatever I choose, the next player will take the opposite of it. If I choose the X, the second player will select the O. And then players take turns putting their marks in empty squares. Rule number three. Whichever first player to get 3 of their marks in a row can be upside, downside, across or diagonally fitted, will call as a winner. Rule number 4. When all 9 squares are full, the game is considered to be over. And if no player has 3 marks in a row or a column or diagonally, the game ends up in a tie. I hope this is pretty easy and we all agree upon this.
Hello and welcome to the second session. In this particular session, I am going to talk about the implementation guidelines about this project. So we are going to talk about what exactly we are trying to develop or implement in this guided project. Number one, we are creating a tic-tac-toe game using Python programming. Number two, this will be an automatic setup. Now, what do you mean by automatic setup? Is we will let the CPU play as both the players. And why we are doing this? I want to keep this project simple and easy to understand for the beginners. So instead of taking user input and playing as a player 1 and player 2, we will let the CPU play as a player 1 and player 2. So in this implementation, we are going to make an automatic setup and we'll let the CPU play from both the sides. Number 3. In order to maintain simplicity, instead of X's and O's, we'll keep it 1 and 2. So for player 1, it will be 1 marked in the grid. For player 2, it will be marked as 2. This is just because we wanted to keep it simple. That's it. Next, this is important. We are not implementing artificial intelligence in this particular tic-tac-toe implementation using Python. Now, what do you mean by artificial intelligence? We are not creating any logic to make our CPU or make our computer learn about how to play and win. It's just a pure random game we are going to design. When I say a pure random game, that says We are not programming, we are not creating logic that always wins or that want to win the game. This is also possible. We can implement artificial intelligence and create a tic-tac-toe game, and we can make our machine learn how to win that game as many uh, times as possible with a high possibility rate. But for here in this implementation, we are not implementing artificial intelligence. We are just creating a pure random game, a game which is not necessarily designed to win all the time. I hope this is clear. And in our next sessions, we are trying to see into the coding and how we will split the coding in multiple sections, and we'll see how to implement. Thank you for joining in, and I'll see you in the next session. Hello and welcome to this session. In this session, I'm going to talk about the implementation planning of this project, Tic-Tac-Toe, using Python. Benjamin Franklin once said, failing to plan is planning to fail. So, any project development cycle should not start without a proper planning. I always tell my students to inculcate this habit of proper planning before implementing any project. So, coming back to the planning, we would require a main function. For my convenience, I am using a name tic-tac-toe. Please feel free to use any other name as per your choice. So, there has to be a main function to start the game. And then there has to be some sub functions for specific functionalities. The very first sub function we would require is for creating an empty tic-tac-toe board. This is the first step. After that, we would require a function to check for empty places on tic-tac-toe board. Number 3, we would require a function for randomly placing ones and twos on tic-tac-toe board. For player 1, we will be placing 1. For player 2, we will be placing 2 on the tic-tac-toe board wherever the empty places are available. And the last function to evaluate the tic-tac-toe board for a winner or a tie. So there will be a main function and 4 sub-functions. In object-oriented programming methodology, it is always suggested to create functions and to call them wherever we require them. So this is one of the best practices that developers use. I hope this is clear. In the coming sessions, we will be talking about the coding part of individual functions. Thank you. Hello and welcome to this session. This is the part 1 of our coding. Here we are going to import some useful libraries which are required for our project. So we'll require numpy to create arrays, which will be useful for creating empty board, tic-tac-toe board. Another package that we will require is random. Random package will be useful for selecting random numbers. We'll also require sleep operation to pause the game for a while so that it makes a little interesting. Okay, the next part is to create the empty board so that we can implement tic-tac-toe. Let's define function. Function name can be anything. For my purpose, my reference, I'm using empty board as a function. Please feel free to use any other name if you want. So we'll be using np.array NumPy package function, inbuilt function called as array, will be utilized to create an empty array of 3 by 3, 3 rows and 3 columns. So, and let's return the board. Whenever someone calls this function empty underscore board, it will receive an empty matrix of 3 by 3. Let's print this function and try to see the functionality. Empty board. Let's run this. Okay, so the output you can see on the screen, right here. So we have just created an empty tic-tac-toe board. It's 3 rows and 3 columns, and we'll be utilizing it for our purpose. So I hope this is easy and easy to understand. We have imported certain libraries for our purpose, and we have created an array of 3 by 3 values, which is 0 by default, because we wanted to create an empty board. And we have returned the board. Whenever a person will call this function, we'll get the empty board. See you in the next session. Thank you. Hello and welcome to this session. This is the part 2 of the coding, and we are going to do 2 functions here. Let's start with checking for the empty places on the tic-tac-toe board. For this, we will be writing a function, and it's up to you to choose any name of the function. For me, I'm using empty places. It's purely your choice. You can use any of the name. Now we will require one empty list to start with. So creating an empty list. Now using for loops to explore the rows and the columns in the board. So utilizing a range function to find out the starting and the ending positions on the board. This is for the row, and a nested for loop for the column as well. Okay. Now we will use a if loop, if condition, to check whichever coordinates on the board are empty. So using I as a row and j as a column. And if the condition satisfies, we will append the coordinates into our empty list. I and j represents the coordinates on the board. That's it. So we will be returning the list as the output. Fine. Now we can test our function. For testing, we need to create a board first. We need an empty board first to test this function. I'm using np.array. np is a numpy package that we have installed and imported. Let's create an empty board here first. Okay, now we can test our function by printing it. We also have to provide the input to the function. Now we can print it. Running the code. Let's see the output. Alright, as we have the empty board at the moment, we have all 9 coordinates in terms of rows and column. As you can see the board, all the empty places are all the places are empty. So now we can take an example. We fill some values on the board. Let's fill 6 values. So we have only 3 empty locations available. Let's see the code. Now the output shows that we have 3 empty locations available on the board. Fine. So our function empty underscore places can check for the empty places on the tic-tac-toe board. I hope this is easy to understand. Now moving towards the next part of the code, we want to select a random place for the players on the tic-tac-toe board. Let's create a function now. Name of the function is absolutely our choice. For my reference, I'm using random place as the name of the function. This function should have two input parameters as board and the player, where board defined the current status of the available positions. Now we want to use the function we have just created before this, empty places, to find out the available places on the board. And then we want to use the current location, and we want to use a random function which we have imported as in libraries, and want to use the random.choice function in the random package. And this is to select a random place on the available positions on the tic-tac-toe board, and then mark the player 1 or player 2 mark on that particular board. So on the board, whatever location we have selected using random.choice, we will put our player name as in 1 or 2 on that particular place. Returning board in the function, and now it's time to test. So this is our function random place. We are testing it now by printing it, giving board and the player, let's say 1, player 1, and then we are running it now. Okay, first let me comment this print function and then see. Okay, now have a look. This was our board, and this is the output. If you see closely, we have selected player 1, which have taken a position of the 3 available positions on the board randomly. We can take another example. We can change the player and see. So again, there were 3 positions remaining. Our player 2 has taken a position out of the available positions. So this function was to select a random place for the player on the tic-tac-toe board. Random underscore place is the name of the function. Okay, so this was the part 2 of the coding where we have checked the empty places on the tic-tac-toe board using empty underscore places function, and we have selected a random place for the player using random underscore place function. I hope you have understood this part of the coding. Thank you.
Okay. Um in this part of the code, checked here. So this function. We will call it as a evaluating. We want to evaluate the. Welcome to this session. In this part of the session, we will be talking about the main function, uh, tic-tac-toe, which will be used to start the game. This is our main function. We can keep any name as per our choice. For my reference, I am using tic-tac-toe. We need to create an empty board to start the main program. After that, initially we will set a winner as a 0, which is an indecisive situation, and we'll keep a counter. Counter will be used to print the number of moves at a later stage. We are also printing our board so that we can see the tic-tac-toe going on, and we'll keep a delay of about 5 seconds between the two steps of the game. Now let's create a main while loop, a condition where, let's say, we still have not found a winner. Now we are creating a for loop, and now let's call our function which we have created earlier, random place, so that we can choose a place for our players on the board so that they can mark their positions. Let's print a statement that says board after this number of moves. We're printing the counter which we have mentioned earlier in this function. So what we are doing here is we are printing a statement saying that board after 1 move, 2 move, 3 move, and so on. Also we are printing the board, the tic-tac-toe board. Let's keep a delay here for about 5 seconds. Delay is up to us. We can edit also this delay to a lesser time period, incrementing the counter. And now let's find out the winner by utilizing a function called as evaluate game, which we have created earlier. Now let's check if we have found a winner, then break the while loop, so we can come out of the while loop.
and we should also return the winner. Fine. So how to call this tic-tac-toe main function is, there are many ways. Let's do it by printing it. So let's say winner is player, and then we can concatenate two strings. Now we can call tic-tac-toe main function in this particular string function. This is one of the way we can call our main function, not necessarily the only way. Now let's try to see the results by running the main program, main function. Empty tic-tac-toe board. Now we have a delay of 5 seconds. Board after first move, we have a first player marked its position. Board after second move, we have a second player who has marked his position. After third move, and so on, we can see that. This is board after fifth move, board after sixth move, and here we can see that our winner is player 1. Player 1 is our winner because player 1 has successfully occupied all the values in the first column. So this is how we have created our main function, tic-tac-toe. This main function will be used to run and start this game. And these are our results. See you in the next session. Thank you.
Congratulations. We have now reached to the very final session of our guided project. In this particular session, I'm going to talk about what more can be experimented and how we can extend this particular project. There are two things that we can do. Let's talk about them one by one. The very first thing is we can create a human versus CPU game, and we can ask from the inputs from a human player. It's up to us. The very second way of extension is creating an artificial intelligence based tic-tac-toe game, a game which is programmed to win as many times as possible. To implement tic-tac-toe using AI, we need to first understand the searching techniques in artificial intelligence. There are searching techniques such as breadth first search and depth first search, which can be utilized to program a tic-tac-toe and to create a possibility that a CPU learns from the games and to win. So anybody who want to explore more can try these two possibilities. In future, I may also try to create an artificial intelligence based tic-tac-toe game as a guided project. I would like to thank you all of the participants for your time and patience, and I would like to know your precious feedback. Your feedback will help me to create more such projects and courses in future. Thank you so much. Thank you once again for joining me in this particular guided project.